welcome to Ray's Sensation. I'm your host, Dan, and since my most popular video I've done so far was my one on exploitation movie fanzines, I thought I would give the people what they want and do a follow-up with some more fanzines. I should point out that my second most popular video was my two Hillbilly comics, which is probably my worst video I've made. And I even got someone who, I've barely gotten any comments on any of my videos, but someone bothered to leave a bad comment for that one. I just gave it a really great title. But in this case, I think people really did like the fanzine reviews, or giving them the once over. And so I'm going to repeat that today, and I hope everything goes okay. All right, so here we go to look at some movie fanzines. Now, there are not as many European fanzines this time around. Most of these are American, but there's some good stuff here. I'm going to start off with a magazine called Cult Movies. This one is number 11. And, well, I want to... This one was published 1994. So this is got a good mix of different stuff. It does focus a lot on older cult movies. So you got to be kind of into some of those things. You can tell by having Ed Wood on the cover, and you know, all his cast members there. And I'm just going to flip through a little couple. There's an article on Forrest J. Ackerman, Lugosi, but one of the things here is there's a interview with Fred Olen Ray, by Fred Olen Ray, with Ed Wood back in 1978. So this is before, you know, we knew very much about Ed Wood, but Fred was a fan. And, you know, I'm not sure, if you don't know who Fred Olen Ray is, go look up some of his, he's done a plethora of B movies, many of which could rival Ed Wood himself. They're not as incompetently made, but there's some real stinkers there, to say the least. But he pretty much worked at that crazy pace that Ed Wood did. So, you know, the fact that he gets things done, and they, like I said, they look much more competent than Ed Wood's films did. But he's a big fan, and he interviews Ed, and he admits here in the that he didn't really know much about Ed's background or some of the films when he interviewed him. And then Ed Wood provided him with some information that's in here for his filmography and stuff that he's not sure is actually correct for whatever reason. And so, but it's a nice little interview, and there's some nice info here. And this is a little history of Vampira. Some more Ed Wood goodies. So that's fun. This is a very, I think his name's pronounced Mohan. Mahon? Not sure. That's the problem with these things, is I haven't heard those names pronounced for most of these people. So I'm not sure. I'm a terrible person. You know, he did nudie cutie things, and you know, it's a fun interview of him talking about getting these no-budget movies done and working with the actors, as it was. Yeah, and you can see some of his later stuff was a little bit on the rough side, too. So nudie cuties, but also some of what they called the roughies. Nice long article, really. And then they have an interview with one of the Godzilla suit actors, which was pretty cool at the time. But, you know, someone who would read the fanzine G-Fan, which is all about Godzilla, that was nothing new for me. And then here, this was really interesting. Rudolph Gray wrote The Nightmare of Ecstasy for Feral House. And it is the most thorough examination of Ed Wood's life and, you know, quite frankly, the sad end to it. A definite must-read, I think, if you're into low-budget films and all and stuff, to read this book. He interviewed a lot of people for this, and it's a great book. I was asking the publisher if they were going to reprint this a couple years ago, and they said they would love to, but they weren't able to contact Gray, or he was avoiding contact, or, you know, so maybe he's not interested. I'm not really sure what the story is, but boy, this could really use a nice reissue. I heard there was more things that could be in the book. I hear he didn't use all the material he originally collected. So, and, you know, there's been a lot of films kind of uncovered since then. Not good films, but there's a lot of things that we didn't connect to him originally that have been found. And again, not a lot, a few. That's exaggerating there. Anyway, all in all, this was a really interesting issue. I had a lot of fun looking through that one. Here is a magazine, Ultraviolent, and there is another magazine out now called Ultraviolent that I don't know if it's associated or not. I don't think so. This magazine came out in 2001. You know, here's an interview with Ted V. Michaels, who's most infamous for Astro Zombies, which is here. His movies are definitely would give Ed Wood a run for his money. Here's an interview with one of the members of Goblin. It's an interesting thing. Visually, kind of boring, I think. But, you know, here's... oh, I forgot that. So, yeah, he's writing about discovering the book Off-Season at a young age. I was older when this book came out, but Off-Season, if anyone's not familiar with the book Off-Season, which was under the pen name Jack Ketchum, it's fantastic. It's a gruesome little horror story. They mentioned the sequel here, Offspring, which is good, but, you know, the first gut punch that was Off-Season, man, that's a hell of a book. I don't know if it'll hit people quite the same way. There's been a lot of gorier books that have come out since. A lot of books that might, you know, bypass it, you know, really hit the meter. There's some guys who do nothing. But this one, the way they handle the characters, he does a fantastic job of making you really be afraid for the characters. I mean, it's a great book. Definitely worth getting. I think it's a print-on-demand book right now, so it's easy to get. I still have my original paperback from so long ago around somewhere. Even when I got rid of almost all my paperbacks at one point, I kept that one. Then there's this, they have reviews of some films, and then they have a second review section called Shocking and Bizarre. And it's weird because they cover things like the 1969 early gore fest Night of the Bloody Apes. It's a Mexican horror film. And then they do things like the shot on video thing, the nostril picker. So it really runs the gamut there. So visually not a real treat. But, you know, it's got some interesting stuff in it. It's not bad. This is Fatal Visions. This is from Australia. I think they did a book collection of some of the best writing from this. It's got a lot of great stuff in it. Like I said, it's from Australia. Here's the author goes through and reviews all of Troy Hark's major films. There's 2 pages here, and then it's continued in the back. I think he's a little nicer to some of the films than I am. Troy Hark is one of those filmmakers who, you know, he's got a couple real classics, and he's got a couple ones that come so close to being classics, but then kind of miss because, you know, he's a guy who always pushed his budgets and his shooting schedules to the limit. And, you know, his films always kind of feel a little wonky and off-center to me. But he's got some definite classics. And this is an interesting bunch of reviews, which, like I say, are a little kinder to some of these films than I would be. And then some video reviews. We'll go past those. An interview with Annie Sprinkle. This is after her porn career. She was a porno star. I think she did regular pornos at first, but then she became famous. You know, her name, Annie Sprinkle, comes from the fact that she did some kink porno stuff. I have a deck of cards that, and when I did my video, you'll see if you looked in my videos, I did one on cards, collectible cards. She did a deck, but I didn't show it because there was so much nudity in it. It's a sex-positive card deck, and it's got some great images in it. She seems like she'd be a hell of a lot of fun to hang out with. So this is a nice little interview, and yeah, Annie Sprinkle. Here, this is an interview with, supposedly it's an interview with Otis Toole, who was the partner of Henry, from Henry, Portrait of the Serial Killer. God, I'm having a brain fart about Henry Lee Lucas is his name. I can't find the name in here, but it's Henry Lee Lucas. I know that. And he was the one who was on the murder spree with him. And in the movie Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, that they have the picture here, they have Henry killing Otis, which of course didn't happen. But actually, the movie has like almost nothing to do with the reality of what the two of them did. You know, I think the director just used the two real life serial killers' names because that would make it seem, you know, get it more attention than just two made up guys. But he didn't really follow what these guys did in the film. It's a great movie. This interview with him, it really almost reads like a parody, and not real. So I don't know. It's just weird. Interviewing Freddie. Then they have a really good book review section. You know, when I realized they mentioned a lot of books I really like, but they mentioned some I don't recognize. So, you know, maybe I need to look back through this again and then look up these books and see what's going on. And then there's some video reviews. So, yeah, I think this is Fatal Vision is definitely one worth picking up. And if I'm correct, I'm almost 100% sure that there was a compilation of the best of put out in book form. So you might want to look for that. I think the thing was that postage from Australia is so high, and you know, because of the weight of the book, it was the postage was more than the cost of the book. I think might have been the deal. I don't really remember, but anyway, definitely some good material in here. Uncut was in that other video I did about fanzines. It's a British one, and like I said, it originally started as you know, looking for where in the world the most uncut versions of the exploitation movies were being released, and it's almost entirely reviews. They're for the most part very well written, and they give a lot of background on the movies. This one on Satan's Blood is way longer than the movie deserves, in my opinion. But what are you going to do? They also have a couple of color pages that are always centered on gore, because that's what, you know, basically gets cut. They cover shot on video crap and all kinds of stuff. It's a lot of fun. There's another color page, and there was a picture from Ricky O on the last page, and there's another shot. Food of the Gods was one of my favorite films. It's a Burt I. Gordon film, loosely based on H.G. Wells, and it's one of those ludicrously bad films. The Famous Monsters gave it a cover story, and but it's great because it's so goofy. This is all shots from it, as a matter of fact. Again, I really like the people who review for this for the most part. I definitely think it's a lot of fun to look through. If you see it, if you're next time you're at a horror convention and you're flipping through the bins, if you see some at a decent price, I think it's worth getting. And in here, they're still doing. This is this they did it every issue. They review the movies that have been released on video and how much had to be cut out of them. Here's a Jackie Chan movie, Battle Creek Brawl. It's one of his American films. 1 second had to be cut for them to release it. Here's What's Up, Tiger Lily, where Woody Allen took an old Japanese spy film and redubbed it. 2 seconds. So, you know, the British censors were a little goofy. Here's some more color pictures. Another Ricky O picture. Oh, and I was just talking about the Astro Zombies. This picture was in the Cult Movies magazine in black and white. There it is in the glorious color. And still more great color gore pictures. There's Zoltan, Hound Dog of Dracula is that picture. And that, it just gives a German title. I don't know what that is. I don't know what the English title for that is. Oh, and, you know, every time I do something on fanzines, I always see a Fred Williamson, Fred the Hammer Williamson, rather, interviews. And I always talk about how fun it is to read him and how he managed to hustle his way to keep his acting career going long after the blaxploitation era was over. You know, how he kept going. And this is another one. I don't think it adds anything that weren't in the other three I talked about. But there you go again. So that's, is it Uncut? Here's another UK fanzine, Giallo Pages. This is issue 2 and 3. Again, you know, they do a lot of reviews of films. They have a lot of interviews with people. David Warbeck, an actor who appeared in a lot of these films, talks about filming a lot of Italian films. These are always fun to read. Reading about the seat of the pants and the no budgets and stuff like that. Part 2 of a Fulci interview. I'm not going to go through it all, but you know, the reproduction of photos isn't the best in this. That's pretty hard to follow there. But yeah, it's a fun mag. Here's an early interview with with Quentin Tarantino about his love of the European exploitation action genre stuff. By this time, of course, we all know about his love for these movies, and I think these have popped up in other interviews and lists and what have you about these films. So I don't think there's anything to track down and go, yay, about. Lots more interviews and reviews. Just point out the third and the conclusion to their Lucio Fulci interviews. And here's Franco Nero. Long before, you know, since Tarantino made a movie using the name Django, and Franco Nero's character Django popped up in a cameo, there's been a lot more interviews with him. So I don't know, but this is a nice little interview done back in the day. This is another USOne, Worldly Remains. It says a pop culture review, and it mentions Spirit, the band. It starts off with a couple of reviews. They're really good reviews. I wish there had been more of them in here, because they're covering some American-type action films that of a variety that don't usually get covered. But there's not a lot of them. And, you know, then it goes on to, there's a couple more, there's some interviews here. This is a review with, an interview with a filmmaker. Oh, there's Possession. But the most of this issue is taken up with those. There's Jay Ferguson Spirit interview. It takes up all these pages. Then an interview with Ed Cassidy from Spirit, and it takes up almost the rest of the mag, back until there's some CD reviews, which is mostly reissues. Although there they review the Oh Brother Where Art Thou soundtrack. So there you go. This is Damon Foster's Oriental Cinema. This is the second iteration of it. This is one where someone else was publishing it for him. Hugh Gallagher, who published a couple of very softcore kind of girly magazines, with some of the emphasis on with a magazine called She, which kind of focused on women in cinema. I probably have a couple of those around still somewhere, but I didn't run across them. Damon was one of the earliest guys doing fanzine stuff about Asian cinema. Now, his early fanzines look like punk rock fanzines, and they're pretty lo-fi, but you know, he was writing about the stuff. He's kind of a controversial kind of guy because he liked to get into arguments with people and stuff, and his sense of humor was, to say it was lowbrow is putting it mildly. And so he talks about it in there. He makes fun of everybody who doesn't like his sense of humor, and you know, he's a funny guy. That doesn't bother me. I mean, it's kind of slows down some of the reviews when he writes more about what he thinks is funny that has nothing to do with the film than actually talking about the movie, as though he really didn't have much to say about it, so he decided to go on a tangent. And like this young woman writes to him and is correcting him on some of the things he got wrong in one issue, and he's like he prints her letter with all these things, but he kind of mocks her and says, "Oh, you're such a turn. It's such a turn on to have you correcting me," and blah blah blah. And you know, that's his type of humor. It's kind of a little whack there. But now here's the thing that'll get you, is that he did this big article on what at the time was a pretty complete, including many incredibly low budget, crappy movies, but it's the hopping vampire genre, and it's a nice big list of stuff, and it's really nice to look through. Now, I will say that none of the movies he reviews, of them, I've seen the good ones. This wasn't a way to discover good movies. The good movies had already risen to the top. But, you know, here they are listed. And you can look for some of the more terrible ones. At least you know they're out there. Look at it. Look how long that is. That's pretty wild. He watched a lot of bad movies to bring you that list. He put a centerfold in this one. It's 3 Supermen in the jungle. And then he didn't give him the centerfold because he likes the movie. He says it's just barely okay. You know, I was trying to, there was one funny line, now I've forgotten what it was. Doggone it. Anyway, it's weird. It's very weird. It's this is an Italian-Spanish co-production, and it was 3 Supermen in the Jungle is the title of it. But it's as you can tell, it's a heck of a film. There he gets at the back cover too. Like I said, I think he had that a really good graphic for it, so that's why I got the middle of the issue. This one he covers Jimmy Wang Yu. Jimmy Wang Yu was an athlete, not a martial artist, but he made some really influential films, and you know, some magazines really just raked Jimmy over the coals for not being much of a martial artist. But he brought a lot of energy to his roles, and you know, it might not look like martial arts like was being done at the time, but he looks like he could have done a little street fighting kind of stuff. He did a lot of there he is, Zatoichi versus the One-Armed Swordsman. So he got to meet up with Zatoichi in a film. And there's a big review of the different movies. So fun. And there's Jimmy with Bruce Lee for the centerfold. And then a bunch of reviews of stuff. And a sexy back cover. Oh, and I think as long as I'm mentioning that, I'll go ahead and mention this. This is a fanzine, Martial Arts Movie Associates. And there's Rick Myers, the infamous Rick Myers, helped write some of this magazine. I think that, you know, it was put together mostly by William Connolly. And he already had a magazine called Spaghetti Cinema covering Italian westerns, muscle man films, meaning the Gladiator and Hercules movies, sci-fi, horror, and more. You know, it was a great fanzine on Italian cinema. One of the first places I saw interviews with Italian actors and stuff about these movies. And so this, and the Palmers, who helped write, there's a big reference book, Martial Arts Movies, which was put out. So anyway, the three of them, it's really William Connolly, I think, put most of this to, you know, he kind of was the glue holding this together. But be that as it may, this is the first, I don't know how many issues. These were Xerox magazines. I did a hole punch and put them together in this to keep them together so I wouldn't lose them. And they interview, they don't interview, they review, like here there's a review of some Japanese film. There's, you know, all kinds of, see, that would have been one issue. That's how thick one issue was. And there's a Spaghetti Cinema, an ad for the Spaghetti Cinema one. And here's, they write up Rick Myers and Bill and Karen Palmer's martial arts movies, from Bruce Lee to the Ninjas, which people love to pick apart for mistakes that are in it. Yeah, so the reproduction of things is a little, you know, it's just a Xerox zine, so visuals don't look that great, but, you know, it was an early one. It was another early fanzine, and I used to like getting it back in the day. I think he still does write under these names online. I haven't checked out his website in a while, so I don't know. I'm friends with him on Facebook, so maybe I'll hit him up and see if he's still doing it. There's all kinds of, like, this is the first interview I read with Steve James. Passed away too young, but, you know, talking about feeling so underutilized in all these movies he's in and having to play second banana to guys who weren't quite, frankly, as good as he was. But, you know, whether you want to believe it or not, there was some prejudice against having a black star, some of these things. And lots of great reviews of films, career overviews and that kind of stuff. That's Martial Arts Movies Associates. So now back to the other fanzines. This is Spectrum. This was put out by the people who put out Wrapped in Plastic, the really weird and obsessive Twin Peaks fanzine. That's right, a fanzine devoted entirely to Twin Peaks. So then they started doing this one, you know, Spectrum. Well, Spectrum might have come first, I'm not sure. But this, really, if you look at the covers of these, the vast majority of them are for Buffy or Xena or Hercules. There's a Star Wars one. There's an X-Files one. But, you know, there's Hercules. That's David Duchovny, so another X-Files. Don't know who that is. That's Bruce Campbell from Xena or Hercules. I don't remember. He might have been in both those. That I think is a Buffy. So anyway, you know, you see where it is. It's covering a lot of things that are were really hip with the TV loving sci-fi people. This guy is Angel from that's a Buffy spinoff, Angel. There's Andromeda. I think that guy is from the Hercules show. I'm not really sure of some of these people. I bought this issue because it has a lot of stuff all about the Tick. And I'm a kind of a Tick fan. So I picked this up on one day when I probably couldn't find any of the usual stuff I picked up. And the Tick live action show, I think, was pretty new at the time. Here it covers the Tick comics. They give a synopsis and then they write their opinions. I don't know that I always agree with these reviews, but it's interesting to see what this guy has to say about the comics. So it's, you know, this is a rundown of the original comic series. Then it gets to the cartoon. I liked the comic. I love this cartoon. It just, there's something about the timing of it, the voice actors they got for it. I really like this cartoon. I laugh a lot at it. I mean, I haven't seen it in a long time, but I used to really laugh at this thing. And it gives a rundown of both seasons. And again, it synopsis and then comments, and some of the comments the guy makes are kind of, you know, I'm going like, what? what are you talking about? But I think it's really good. It's nice to see this. You know, it has the credits for the episodes on it. Nice long piece on it. Then, what was it? I was thinking it was 2 seasons. Was it supposed to be 3 seasons? Yeah, it's 3 seasons. Okay, I think of them. I really think of them as one big lumpy season. But then it does the live action show, which wasn't bad, but wasn't. And you know, they've since made another live action version for Amazon Prime, and this one was okay. It had some good stuff in it. It didn't come up to the level I didn't think of the cartoon. The new live action one kind of strikes a slightly different tone, and I kind of like that one, the one on Amazon Prime. So anyway, that's why I picked that up. And this is Baltimore's own Midnight Marquee. Gary and Sue Svella have been putting this out. This issue is winter 1992. So that's actually one of the later ones, because they had been publishing this bad boy for a long time. And I'll just point out that this had a, you know, it mostly covered, I mean, it was still covering all the old classics. And I mean, it still does, you know. So whether or not you know, if you're old like me, you might feel like you don't need yet another look at Bride of Frankenstein or something like that, in which case, you know, you might not be that interested. But at the time, this came out, I was still feeling pretty good about all these older, you know, and sometimes the essays, re-looking at old films do add something to it. It's fun to read. I don't mean to be dismissive, because I do read that kind of stuff. I'm just saying it might not be your cup of tea. Now, one thing they did do is, for this, considering, like I said, that it covers most of that kind of stuff, they would also have some things like this guy, Donald Willis, wrote here an article. Now, it's pretty all over the place. You know, it's not some kind of comprehensive thing. It's just like it really seems pretty random what films they talk about, but it was for, at the time, there wasn't that much written about Asian films, and this thing comes along. It's a couple pages, and it covers some movies that didn't get a lot of ink in American fanzines. Of course, then we had the boom. You know, once all the Asian movies started coming into bootlegs, bootleg videotapes in at conventions, then all these fanzines devoted entirely to Asian films popped up. And, you know, who needed them to run this? But I still liked seeing the Asian films covered in non-Asian film magazines, because I was always hoping new fans would discover them. And then there's this is a pretty interesting article on the making of The Day the World Ended, calling it the real beginning of American International. Pretty interesting. And then there's a couple other, like, grave sites of the stars. Some different stuff there. And then there's a big review section, and Gary writes all the reviews himself, which is kind of funny, because you know, it's hard to tell where Gary's going to fall when reviewing some of these films. And here's where he reviews Beauty and the Beast, the French, the French film from 1964 that gets the cover. But that's all that is there. So, and you know, this is a classic fanzine with a lot of artwork instead of photos. And there's from a FanX. They used to run the FanX here in Baltimore, a great local convention. Nice.